Hello. So I just got back from my trip from South America about a week ago. I can't believe it's been a week already. Seems like forever. It's just, when you're so used to being on the go constantly and every day is a new adventure, like coming back home is a whole different story. I think a lot of travelers know that it's just not the same when you get back. So you kind of have to get used to the daily life. But I really wanted to share some advice on how to book a trip or how to plan a trip. For me, it's not that difficult because I've been going on a lot of backpacking trips. Um, in my life, at least in the last few years, I've done so. But I know for some people it can be a daunting task, especially if you don't know where to begin. And then also, like, if you're planning a trip that's kind of extensive, it can be hard just because of kind of getting used to like booking things on the go or knowing if you should plan something ahead of time or wait until you get to a destination or a place and then kind of go from there. So this is kind of what I do, and I want to let you can always be flexible with the route that you take in life and your trip and your journey. It's your journey, so you decide. And I don't necessarily think, just because everyone else is doing something that you have to. For instance, just because everyone else is going to a certain spot or like a tourist attraction or something doesn't mean you have to, or everyone's climbing that one mountain that's so infamous doesn't mean that it's something that's mandatory for you as well, unless you really want to. You know, you don't have to. So, for me, how I get started in planning for a trip is usually a plant or a seed is planted in my brain. Every time I go to the library and I walk past the aisle with all the travel books, like the Lonely Planet, Ford's Travel, and all these other Rough Guy. I think that's one of them. Anyway, I always see a book and I'm just like, oh, should I pick it up or should I not? I end up picking it up, and then next thing I know, I plan a trip. It just kind of happens. But of course, in order to go somewhere, you need time, right? You need time, you need money, you need resources. It's not free, and it's not always cheap. But with that being said, I will teach you some ways to make it economical. Um, First step is you need to save. You need to have enough money saved up so that you can safely travel and also kind of travel with like a security blanket. You don't want to save up just enough for what you need. You need to save up a little bit extra because you don't know if you're gonna run into maybe like additional charges somewhere, and that's always a possibility, and trust me, that happens. Not always, but sometimes. And it's happened to me, like with airlines charging extra money for stupid things, so you just kind of have to have a little bit extra saved up. But with that being said, it's really not that expensive if you choose to travel on a budget, on a shoestring. If you choose to travel wisely, you can very well make it work. I just went on a 2 month trip, which for some isn't that long, and for some that seems like a really long time. For me, it was the longest trip I had ever taken. Well, I take that back. The longest was 6 months, but I was actually living and volunteering somewhere. So I guess that doesn't necessarily count. This was solely travel purposes. So it was the longest I had taken just for backpacking. And I started planning the trip about a month before I left. Most of the planning happened within the last week, honestly, and some of it happened like on my way there to South America, on my way to Colombia, which was my first country, and some of the planning continued. Like as I would go, I would book hostels, I would book bus tickets at the bus stand, obviously not ahead of time, but it's something that you learn to do. And part of traveling is being spontaneous. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to book on the go. If you're someone that likes to have an itinerary ahead of time and don't want to leave anything to chance, by all means do that if that's your style, if that makes you comfortable. But for me, at least, traveling is also about putting yourself out of your comfort zone. Like when I'm traveling, I am never in a box. Like I don't restrict myself to like I can't do this or that. Like of course everyone has fears, but you learn to overcome your fears. Like my major fear is fear of heights, and people would not think that if they talk to me or have met me during my travels. It's because I choose to put myself in a place that is not necessarily 100% comfortable, but I know it will lead to some sort of growth. So I like going on hikes on high mountains, 14,000 feet above sea level. I enjoy paragliding. I enjoy any like zip lining or anything like that. And it's not that I'm not scared of that, but I get over my fear every single time. And it's the best feeling in the world. Trust me, travel will put you out of your comfort zone. Travel will teach you new things. It'll shape you to be like this versions of yourself, that you didn't know existed. So I highly recommend just kind of trying new things. Just because you have a fear, just don't let that set you back. And when you're planning financially for a trip, I would advise at least trying to do something like with travel miles or rewards. Now, some people are familiar with the credit card rewards or airline miles. I use both. I have gotten many free flights within the last few years. I have gotten huge discounts, all thanks to credit card miles as well as using airline miles. And that's a huge help when you're traveling for a long trip. Any dollar saved or pound or whatever currency you use is going to go a long way. So I really recommend trying to learn the system of credit card miles and airline miles or points. And once you have that system down, you will save a lot of money and you will be able to go on trips like this without putting a huge dent in your savings. Also, you need to be mindful that if you're going on a journey or trip, that you take any safety precautions, whether it's immunizations, anything like that, that you need ahead of time. Now, with that being said, I've been on both sides of that. Being in the healthcare industry, I know what I need and I know how to take care of myself. And there are sometimes I'm not able to get the services that I need because of cost or availability in wherever I'm at. So it can be challenging at times, but try your best to get the prophylactic vaccines or whatever it is you need. In some countries, some places, you need malaria prophylaxis, and I think that's something that you should take seriously, because I've seen a lot of malaria cases in my life. And same thing with like vaccinations. Like if you can get it, definitely get it. I know it's hard if you don't have health insurance, and even with health insurance, a lot of these things aren't always covered or covered fully, I would say. So, but that is my recommendation, at least from a healthcare point of view. So save financially, get your safety prophylactic vaccinations or medications that you need during your trip, for your trip to take during your trip, and plan wisely as well, but leave some things spontaneity, or leave some things for last minute planning, or don't, or plan as you go the whole trip. I met people doing all sorts of things, so it's up to you, whatever makes you happy. I kind of do both. I plan up to a certain point, but then I also leave things last minute for some stuff. And sometimes I find that last minute plans are the best. So, yeah, and then I think one other thing is if you're going to South America, at least, or any continent, any place, you want to be sure that you don't pack excessive stuff. Unless that's your style and you're okay with carrying all of that stuff, then by all means do so. It's not the end of the world if you choose to take a carry-on suitcase with you or two. That's your thing, do it. But my thing is no. I only take a book bag with me. That's my style. And I prefer that. I have taken trips where I have taken a carry-on with me, and it's been such a hassle, I will tell you. So a book bag is just so much simpler. What you need is going to be in your book bag. If it doesn't fit, and if you're not going to use it, don't put it in there. If there's something out of necessity that you need along the way, you can find it in most places. This isn't the middle of the Amazon jungle, and even if it is, like I was in the Amazon jungle, I wasn't that far away from getting what I needed. So maybe like an hour or 2 hours, but I survived. So it's okay. Like, you don't need to think about every little thing you will need when you're abroad. Just think about the bare necessities that you will need. maybe a few pairs of clothes. Some people travel with maybe 3 pairs of clothes. Some people travel with 10 pairs of clothes. It's different. Every trip I've taken a different number or pairs of clothes with me. And a lot of times I don't end up wearing every single piece of clothing. It just depends on the weather and like what you end up doing. Like most of my activities were outdoors, so like things like hiking, being in the woods. So I chose to wear clothes that were appropriate for those settings. So for me, I don't care about packing 10 dresses because I'm not going to wear a dress if I'm trying to climb a mountain. Like, who does that? I don't know. Maybe if someone does that, who knows? But I don't do that. And I don't recommend that you do that either. So pack smart. Pack what you need. And practical, I guess. Pack practically. And if you need something along the way or if you want something, you can always buy it. I bought clothes along the way. I even went to like this fancy fashion place, Falabella, I think, in Chile, and Santiago, and I bought myself a new pair of jeans. And I got myself a cardigan from Lima, Peru, and I got myself a couple of sweaters, one from Ecuador, Baños, and one from Cusco. So it's not that I don't shop, but I like to get things that's going to remind me of a place. But I try not to get excessive stuff because I usually don't have room in my bag. So you can always buy things later on. I had to buy those sweaters, not just because they were really cute and they reminded me of the place, but because it was really cold and I realized I didn't have enough warm clothes that I needed. And then same with the cardigan. The jeans, I just kind of wanted the jeans. That was me being a shopaholic for a second. So it's okay though. It's your trip. It's your journey, and if you want to shop, then do so. Just you're gonna have to figure out how to put that extra pair of jeans in your bag. And I had a challenge. I had a really hard time coming back, trying to get my bag to zip back up. The zip on the bag then broke, but that's besides the story. I fixed it. And I made it back, and with one book bag. So you can make that happen. Just pack minimally. Backpacking will turn you into a minimalist in many ways. Yeah, I think that's good in life. I think that's good to stay away from consumerism, because especially in a country like the United States, you're constantly drawn towards it. So try your best to kind of take away some lessons from your trips that you take and apply them to daily life, because it really does shape you in many ways. I see things a lot differently now than I did before, and it's hard to believe that, your worldview can change so much. But when you're exposed to so many different cultures, it's only natural for that to happen. And the last thing I want to say is you can definitely make a long-term trip happen, or a short-term trip. It doesn't matter if you're going for a couple days, a couple months, a year. It's your journey, make the most of it, and pack smartly, pack smart, save, so be really economical, and safety first. I should say that, especially for women and men. But even as I say that, I always feel safe when I'm traveling. I don't think I've ever felt unsafe in another country, city, or town. I always feel safe when traveling. Maybe because I grew up in a dangerous city, it just anywhere else in the world seems like a safe haven to me. But who knows, maybe if you grew up in a lovely suburb, when you go to a random city that's not familiar, it may not feel safe to you. So always use your common sense and trust your instincts and your intuition, and just be really mindful of your surroundings no matter where you are in the world. And the world is not any scarier than you can make it out to be. So it's all about perspective. So that's all. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your trip. And remember, if you want to go backpacking, you can do so on a budget. You don't need to have tons of money saved aside. You can do so really cheaply, especially if you're going to be in certain countries where a dollar can be stretched really far, or a euro, whatever currency you use. With that, have a safe journey, and hasta luego. Adios, ciao.